Today, I'm going to show you the number one healthy food that is actually causing your blood pressure to spike now that you are over the age of 60. Many seniors follow standard dietary advice only to find their numbers climbing higher every month despite their best efforts to eat what they are told is good for them. This hidden culprit often goes unnoticed by even the most health-conscious individuals, leaving you wondering why your medication or lifestyle changes are not reflecting in your daily readings. As a physician who has focused on senior cardiovascular health for decades, I have seen how these specific, healthy choices can silently strain your arteries and create unnecessary risks for your heart. I remember a woman named Dorothy, who was 67 years old and struggled with persistent hypertension, despite eating what she thought was a perfect and balanced diet. She was experiencing frequent headaches, a heavy feeling in her chest, and a sense of fatigue that she could not quite explain to her family. Her doctor had been telling her to just keep doing what she was doing and perhaps increase her medication, but she knew something was fundamentally wrong with the advice she was receiving. Her story is a perfect example of how the common health foods we are told to eat can sometimes be the very things keeping our pressure in the danger zone. Before we dive in, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what your blood pressure numbers are. I want to hear your experience. 1. The first thing you should consider doing is significantly reducing your intake of store-bought canned vegetable soups, even the ones that are labeled as organic or healthy options. While these soups seem like a convenient way to get your daily serving of vegetables, they are often packed with hidden sodium used to preserve the texture of the vegetables over long periods. Keeping your sodium intake low is one of the most effective ways to ensure your arteries remain flexible and your blood flow stays smooth as you age. I once worked with a gentleman named Arthur, who was 72 years old and took great pride in his health, often eating a large bowl of vegetable soup every single day for lunch. Arthur was confused because despite his vegetable-heavy diet, his top blood pressure number remained stubbornly high, often reaching levels that made him feel lightheaded and anxious. After we looked closely at his pantry, we realized his healthy lunch was providing nearly 70% of his daily salt allowance in just one sitting. Once Arthur stopped relying on these canned options and started making simple batches of fresh soup at home, his morning readings began to stabilize within just 2 weeks. The reason these soups are so problematic for seniors is that as we age, our kidneys become less efficient at processing excess sodium, leading to fluid retention that puts direct pressure on the walls of our blood vessels. Even if a can says it is low sodium, it may still contain more salt than a senior with hypertension should consume in a single meal, especially when you consider the serving sizes listed on the back. Manufacturers often use salt to enhance the flavor of vegetables that have been sitting in liquid for months, which creates a concentrated source of sodium that enters your bloodstream quickly. To make this change effectively, start by reading the labels of any soup you currently have and looking for the milligrams of sodium per serving. Then multiply that by how many servings are actually in the can. A much better approach is to spend one afternoon a week simmering a large pot of fresh vegetables like carrots, celery, and onions in plain water, or a very low-sodium homemade broth. You can use herbs like thyme, rosemary, or a splash of lemon juice to provide the flavor that salt usually offers without the negative impact on your heart health. If you are someone who currently takes blood pressure medication, it is especially important to be cautious with processed soups as the salt can sometimes interfere with how well your medicine works. This simple transition to fresh, homemade liquids supports much steadier and more predictable blood pressure readings throughout the day. 2. Another important action to take is moving away from prepackaged deli meats like sliced turkey or roast beef, which many seniors believe are the best lean protein choices for a healthy heart. Choosing fresh, whole cuts of meat that you cook yourself is a much safer way to manage your cardiovascular system because it gives you total control over the ingredients used during the preparation process. When you avoid the hidden preservatives found in deli meats, you allow your blood vessels to relax and maintain a more natural rhythm without the chemical interference often found in processed foods. I remember a woman named Margaret, who was 65 and had recently switched from red meat to deli-sliced turkey sandwiches because she believed it was a heart-healthy alternative. Margaret was surprised to find that her blood pressure actually began to rise after making this healthy switch, and she started noticing that her ankles were swelling by the end of every afternoon. She was frustrated because she felt she was making a sacrifice for her health that was not paying off, and she worried that her condition was simply getting worse due to her age. Once we identified that the healthy turkey was actually brined in a high-sodium solution to keep it moist, she switched to roasting a whole chicken on Sundays and slicing it herself for her lunches. Recent studies have shown that it is not always the fat content in meat that causes the most trouble for seniors, but rather the processing methods that introduce high levels of nitrates and salts into the meat fibers. These substances can lead to increased arterial stiffness, making it harder for your heart to pump blood effectively through your body, which naturally results in a higher blood pressure reading on your monitor. For seniors over 60, the impact of these processed salts is often felt much more quickly than in younger individuals because our vascular systems are more sensitive to changes in fluid balance. To implement this change, try to visit the fresh meat counter instead of the pre-packaged deli section and look for whole pieces of poultry or lean beef that have no added solutions or salt. You can roast these items in your oven with simple seasonings like garlic powder, onion powder, and black pepper, which provide a savory taste without the need for sodium-based rubs. Once the meat is cooked and cooled, you can slice it thinly and store it in your refrigerator for several days of sandwiches or salads that are truly heart-friendly. This method ensures you are getting high-quality protein to maintain your muscle mass as a senior without the hidden blood pressure spikes that come from industrial food processing. Taking a moment to subscribe for more simple blood pressure and senior health tips will help you stay informed about these small but vital lifestyle adjustments. This practice of choosing whole foods over processed ones supports a much calmer environment for your circulatory system. 3. It is essential that you master the correct technique for measuring your blood pressure at home, as many seniors are unknowingly getting false high readings due to poor posture or incorrect cuff placement. Learning to take an accurate reading ensures that you are not making health decisions based on flawed data, which can lead to unnecessary stress or changes in your medication that you might not actually need. When you measure your pressure correctly, you gain a clear and honest picture of your heart health, allowing you to manage your condition with confidence and peace of mind. I once worked with a man named Robert, who was 69 years old, and was very concerned because his home readings were always much higher than the ones his doctor recorded at the clinic. Robert was becoming increasingly anxious about his health, and every time he sat down to take his blood pressure, his heart would race, which only served to drive the numbers even higher in a frustrating cycle. We discovered that Robert was taking his readings while sitting on a soft sofa with his feet dangling and his arm resting down by his side, rather than at the level of his heart. Once we corrected his posture and taught him to sit quietly for 5 minutes before pressing the start button, his home readings dropped by nearly 15 points, reflecting his true resting state. A recent study published in a leading cardiovascular journal revealed that nearly 40% of seniors are using a blood pressure cuff that is either too small or too large for their arm, which can result in errors of up to 20 points. For an accurate measurement, you must sit in a sturdy chair with your back supported and both of your feet flat on the floor, avoiding the common mistake of crossing your legs, which can restrict blood flow and raise your numbers. Your arms should be resting on a flat surface like a table, positioned so that the middle of the cuff is at the exact same level as your heart. To do this correctly at home, make it a habit to avoid caffeine, exercise, or smoking for at least 30 minutes before you plan to take your blood pressure reading. Sit quietly in your designated chair for 5 full minutes without talking, looking at your phone, or watching television, as these activities can stimulate your nervous system and cause a temporary spike. Take 2 or 3 readings about 1 minute apart and write down the average of those numbers in a dedicated logbook to share with your healthcare provider during your next visit. If you find that the cuff feels uncomfortably tight or loose, it may be worth taking your monitor to a local pharmacy to ensure you have the correct size for your arm circumference. This attention to detail in your daily routine ensures that your efforts to stay healthy are being measured accurately and fairly. 4. You should consider moving away from flavored instant oatmeal packets and instead choose plain steel-cut or rolled oats that you flavor yourself with natural ingredients. While oatmeal is often promoted as a heart-healthy grain that can lower cholesterol, the instant varieties found in individual packets are frequently loaded with added sugars and hidden sodium to balance the sweet flavors. By choosing the most natural form of oats, you are providing your body with a slow-burning source of fiber that helps stabilize your blood sugar and prevents the inflammatory response that can lead to higher blood pressure. I remember a woman named Linda who was 70 years old and ate a bowl of maple and brown sugar instant oatmeal every morning because the box had a heart-healthy seal on the front. Linda was confused as to why her blood pressure seemed to spike about an hour after breakfast, and she often felt a crash in her energy levels by mid-morning that left her feeling weak and shaky. She assumed her body was just slowing down due to her age, but the reality was that the high sugar content in her breakfast was causing a rapid insulin response that affected her vascular tension. When Linda switched to plain rolled oats topped with a handful of fresh blueberries and a sprinkle of cinnamon, her morning energy improved and her blood pressure stayed much more consistent. The simple explanation for this is that the instant nature of these oat packets means the grains have been highly processed and flattened so they cook quickly, which also means your body digests them much faster than whole grains. This rapid digestion leads to a spike in blood sugar, and for many seniors, high blood sugar and high blood pressure go hand in hand because the excess sugar can damage the delicate lining of your arteries over time. Furthermore, the flavoring agents used in these packets often contain more sodium than you would expect in a breakfast food, which contributes to fluid retention right at the start of your day. To make this change, look for old-fashioned rolled oats or steel-cut oats in the bulk section or large canisters, which are often much more affordable and contain no added ingredients. You can cook a large batch of these oats at the beginning of the week and simply reheat a portion each morning with a little bit of water or a splash of unsweetened almond milk. To add flavor without the health risks, use natural spices like cinnamon, ginger, or nutmeg, and add a small amount of healthy fats like walnuts or flax seeds to keep you feeling full and satisfied. If you find that you miss the sweetness, a few slices of banana or a small handful of berries will provide a natural sweetness, along with beneficial potassium, which is a mineral that actively helps your body flush out excess sodium. This small adjustment to your morning ritual supports a much smoother start for your heart and your overall circulation. 5. Another helpful step is to be very cautious with store-bought, low-fat salad dressings, which are often marketed as a healthy choice for seniors looking to manage their weight and heart health. When manufacturers remove the fat from a dressing, they almost always replace it with high amounts of sugar and extra salt to maintain a palatable flavor and texture for the consumer. By avoiding these processed dressings and making your own simple vinaigrettes at home, you eliminate a major source of hidden sodium and inflammatory oils that can tighten your arteries and raise your blood pressure readings after a meal. I remember a man named George who was 74 and had committed to eating a large salad every day to improve his cardiovascular health and lose a few pounds. George was frustrated because despite his dedication to eating greens, his blood pressure was not improving as quickly as he hoped, and he often felt bloated after his healthy lunch. We discovered that he was using a fat-free Italian dressing that contained more sodium per serving than a small bag of potato chips, which was completely negating the benefits of the vegetables he was eating. Once George began using a simple mixture of olive oil and fresh lemon juice, his bloating disappeared, and his blood pressure numbers began to trend downward into a safer range. The reason these dressings are so problematic for seniors is that they often contain high fructose corn syrup and various emulsifiers that can trigger low-level inflammation in the body. For someone over 60, this inflammation can make the walls of the blood vessels less responsive, meaning they do not dilate as easily when blood needs to flow through them, leading to a natural increase in pressure. Furthermore, the high salt content in these healthy dressings causes the body to hold on to water, which increases the total volume of blood your heart has to pump through your system. To replace these dressings, keep a bottle of high-quality extra virgin olive oil and some fresh lemons or balsamic vinegar on your kitchen counter where they are easy to reach. A simple dressing made of 1 part acid, like lemon juice or vinegar, and 2 parts olive oil, along with a pinch of dried oregano or black pepper, provides a delicious flavor that enhances the nutrients in your salad. The healthy fats in the olive oil actually help your body absorb the fat-soluble vitamins found in your vegetables, such as vitamins A, D, E, and K, which are essential for senior health. If you are someone who enjoys a creamy dressing, you can whisk in a spoonful of plain Greek yogurt or a bit of Dijon mustard to get that desired texture without the unhealthy additives. This easy change in your kitchen habits supports a much more relaxed and healthy vascular system as you enjoy your daily meals. If you're finding these tips useful, please consider subscribing to the channel so you never miss a new update on senior health. 6. You should also pay close attention to the timing and consistency of your hydration, as being even mildly dehydrated can cause your blood to become more concentrated and your pressure to rise. For many seniors, the natural thirst mechanism becomes less sensitive with age, meaning you might not feel thirsty even when your body desperately needs more fluids to function correctly. By establishing a routine of sipping water throughout the day, you help maintain a healthy blood volume and ensure that your kidneys can effectively flush out the excess sodium that contributes to hypertension. I remember a woman named Susan who was 68 years old and suffered from frequent bouts of high blood pressure that seemed to happen mostly in the late afternoon and early evening. Susan insisted that she drank plenty of fluids, but when we looked at her habits, we realized she was drinking 3 large cups of coffee in the morning and then very little else until dinner time. This meant that by the time 4 o'clock arrived, her body was in a state of dehydration, causing her heart to work harder to circulate her thickening blood. Once Susan started carrying a small water bottle with her and taking a few sips every hour, her afternoon pressure spikes became much less frequent and less severe. Recent scientific observations have shown that proper hydration is not just about the amount of water you drink, but also about the balance of electrolytes like potassium and magnesium in your system. For seniors, it is often helpful to include natural sources of these minerals in your diet, such as a banana or a small serving of cooked spinach, to help your cells hold on to the hydration you are providing. When your body is well hydrated, your blood vessels can remain more flexible and open, which allows blood to flow with much less resistance and keeps your readings within a healthy and stable range. To stay properly hydrated without feeling like you are constantly running to the bathroom, try to drink small amounts of water consistently rather than gulping down large glasses all at once. You can set a simple timer on your kitchen stove or use a reminder on your phone to prompt you to take a few sips every 30 to 40 minutes throughout the day. If you find plain water to be unappealing, you can add a slice of cucumber, a sprig of mint, or a few frozen berries to your glass to give it a refreshing and natural hint of flavor. Be sure to limit your intake of caffeinated beverages like coffee and soda, as these can act as diuretics and actually strip your body of the fluids it needs to keep your blood pressure low. This consistent focus on hydration is a simple but powerful way to support your heart health and your overall vitality as a senior. Taking these steps daily will help you feel more energetic and keep your blood pressure numbers where they belong. 7. You should also take a very close look at the type of bread you are keeping in your kitchen, as even the whole grain and multigrain varieties that are marketed as healthy can be a significant source of hidden sodium for seniors. While these breads do provide more fiber than white bread, many commercial bakeries use high amounts of salt to control the yeast during the rising process and to ensure the bread stays soft on the shelf for a longer period. By being more selective about your bread choices and learning how to read the sodium content on the label, you can continue to enjoy your morning toast or sandwich without the worry of an afternoon blood pressure spike. I remember a man named Henry, who was 71 years old and had been a lifelong lover of bread, often having 2 slices of a premium 7-grain loaf with every meal. Henry was doing everything else right. He walked every day and avoided added salt at the table, but his blood pressure remained elevated and he often felt a strange tightness in his hands and feet. He was convinced that his healthy bread was the foundation of his diet, and he never suspected that just 4 slices of his favorite loaf contained more sodium than a large order of fast food French fries. Once Henry switched to a specific low-sodium sprouted grain bread and limited his intake to just 2 slices a day, the swelling in his extremities vanished, and his pressure readings began to settle into a much healthier range. Recent studies have highlighted that for the average adult over 60, bread and rolls are actually the leading source of sodium in the diet, even more so than salty snacks like chips or pretzels. This is because bread is a staple food that we eat throughout the day, and the salt is baked directly into the dough, making it impossible to see or taste in the same way you would with salt sprinkled on top of a meal. For a senior with a sensitive vascular system, this constant drip of sodium throughout the day keeps the blood volume high and prevents the arteries from fully relaxing, which is why your numbers might stay high even if you aren't using a salt shaker. To make a better choice for your heart, look at the nutrition label on your bread and aim for a brand that contains less than 100 milligrams of sodium per slice. You might also explore sprouted grain breads found in the freezer section, as these are often made with fewer preservatives and lower salt levels than the standard loaves found in the bread aisle. Another excellent option is to look for authentic sourdough bread from a local bakery, as the natural fermentation process used in traditional sourdough can sometimes make the bread easier to digest and slightly lower in its glycemic impact. If you are someone who enjoys spending time in the kitchen, you might even try baking your own bread once a week using a no-salt recipe flavored with herbs like rosemary or toasted sesame seeds. This shift in how you view and consume bread will provide a much more stable environment for your blood pressure and help you avoid those hidden spikes that often occur after a seemingly healthy meal. 8. You can also implement a simple evening breathing routine to help regulate your nervous system and lower your blood pressure before you go to sleep. Engaging in just 5 to 10 minutes of slow, intentional breathing can activate your body's rest and digest system, which naturally counteracts the fight or flight response that often keeps our arteries constricted during times of stress. This practice is one of the most effective same-day levers you can use to see an immediate calming effect on your heart rate and your vascular tension, providing a gentle way to support your cardiovascular health from the comfort of your favorite chair. I remember a woman named Patricia who was 66 years old and found that her blood pressure always seemed to climb as the sun went down, often reaching its highest point right before she went to bed. Patricia was a naturally anxious person and would often lay awake at night worrying about her health, which only served to keep her pressure elevated and her heart racing. She felt like she was losing control of her body and was worried that she would eventually need even more medication to manage her evening spikes. After I taught her a simple box breathing technique to use every night while sitting in her recliner, she found that her body began to relax almost instantly, and her morning blood pressure readings were consistently 10 points lower than they had been for months. The simple explanation for why this works is that slow breathing sends a direct signal to your brain and your heart that you are safe, which triggers the release of hormones that help your blood vessels dilate and expand. For seniors, this is especially important because the baroreceptors in our necks, which are responsible for sensing and regulating blood pressure, can become less sensitive over time. By consciously slowing your breath to about 6 breaths per minute, you are essentially retraining these sensors to maintain a lower and more stable pressure throughout the entire body. To perform this routine at home, find a quiet place where you can sit comfortably with your back straight and your eyes closed, and place one hand on your belly and the other on your chest. Inhale slowly through your nose for a count of 4. Feeling your belly expand under your hand rather than your chest rising, which ensures you are using your full lung capacity. Hold that breath gently for a count of 4, then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 6 or 8, imagining that you are blowing out through a tiny straw. Repeat this cycle for several minutes, focusing only on the sensation of the air moving in and out of your body and letting go of any stressful thoughts or worries from the day. This simple, free, and effective habit is something you can do every single night to ensure your heart and your arteries are getting the rest they need to function at their best. If you know someone over 50 who could benefit from this, share this video. And subscribe for more simple blood pressure tips.